Lately I've been losing track and sleeping late and looking back on memories. Images of candlelight and waking up to find you lying next to me. But in spite of my nostalgia, I'm still living for today. Darling, all I really wanna say is, baby, that I think about you. 'Cause I've never seen no one that smiles the way you do. And darling, do you think about me? 'Cause now and again, my friend, I see you in my dreams.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sweet Earth Foods Veggie Lovers event. We are so excited that you are here to celebrate love with us and to talk about the importance of dating and diets and dating and how the choice of having a healthy lifestyle and what you put into your body really can affect the kind of connections that you can make. My name is Damona Hoffman, and for those of you who don't know me, I am a certified dating coach. You may have seen me on the Drew Barrymore Show, you may have heard me on NPR, and I also host a podcast called Dates and Mates. And fun fact, I'm a Flexitarian who's married to a vegetarian. So I'm particularly excited to take part in this conversation with you today. But I'm not alone, of course. You came to see someone very important, very special, who is also a flexitarian, who is also in a relationship with someone who is vegan. You know him as the star of Netflix's Outer Banks TV show. Please help me welcome Chase Stokes.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Chase, I'm so great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me today.
I'm so glad you could take time out of your busy production schedule. You guys are back to the races, filming your Netflix show. But we got to talk about food. We got to talk about love. Valentine's Day is coming up.
Let's do it. It's right around the corner. We've got a couple days to talk about these things and get everybody ready to roll.
Yeah. All right. Good. So let's start with a few just simple icebreakers. I want to get to know you a little bit better and tell the audience a few things about you. So I'm going to play a game that I actually recommend sometimes that my clients do on dates as an icebreaker as well. It's called This or That. So I'll tell you two things that seem opposed on the surface, and you tell me which one you prefer. Okay?
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. First one. This is going to be rapid fire. You ready?
Yeah. All right.
Okay,
Sweating a little bit, but that's okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Beach trip or ski trip?
Ski trip right now.
Ski trip. Right. It's warm where you are, right? How about this? Morning person or night owl?
I'm a morning person.
Me too. I know, like a good cup of joe. Well, that's a good question. I got to know. Coffee or tea person?
I don't trust a tea drinker. Something gets fishy
Wait, I'm
with
drinking tea right now. I'm a coffee drinker.
Good. See, now we're on a good trail.
That's going to be popping up. We're going to get you guys involved in the discussion. One more before we move on to talking about deal breakers in dating. Would you prefer to be with someone who's hot or funny? Which is most important?
I think personality is key, so funny.
Funny. Yeah, always go for funny. As a dating coach, I'll say that.
Personality goes the distance.
So now we have, we're going to move into some deal breakers. Everyone always asks me, like, what's a deal breaker in dating? What are the things that would make you say absolutely not? So we have a poll that we're putting up on the screen for everybody participating today. And the deal breaker that we want to know from you is it a deal breaker if your date eats off your plate without asking? Don't answer it yet, Chase. I'm going to let our audience answer, and then we're going to see what
Okay.
what everybody else thinks. But I'm going to ask you a couple other deal breakers. What
Okay,
if
let's do
they
it.
mention their ex? What if they mention their ex on the first date? Is that a deal breaker?
Am I supposed to answer, or are we waiting?
Yeah, you can answer that one.
No, I don't think so. I think that being able to be open about your past, as long as it's not in a strange comparison way, then I think that's an empowering thing. I think to be able to have those conversations when more times than not, it's kind of an awkward setting to do it. I think it's kind of empowering.
But there's a line, right? Like you don't want the whole date to be about your ex, because then
No, I don't want the whole like, so we've been dating for 15 years and what I'm not gonna get into it, but sometimes you get in those circumstances where you're like, am I just here to be your therapist part-time? Like what's going on here? So I think there's
that sometimes dates do turn into that. I'm sure a lot of people at home are like,
Mhm.
I've been there. What
Like,
about
oh,
if you're out, like, imagine we can go out to dinner like regular times, and the person is rude to the waiter. Is that a deal breaker, or
instant,
are we reading it?
instant. That is
Instant deal breaker.
that is literally one of my top, I would say top 5 pet peeves. I mean, for me, there's no difference. A human is a human is a human, and it doesn't matter what your perception is of their job responsibility. But if you have the audacity to be rude to somebody who is going out of their way to make your night, a special experience, that's gonna be a no for me. Mm-mm.
See, I always say pay attention to how someone acts on the first date and in the early phase of dating, because it really gets amplified as you get to
Oh
know
yeah,
them better, and those are the kind of things that don't change. So good manners are really important. Let's go
I
see
agree.
what everybody had to say about if your date eats off your plate without
Hmm.
asking, is that a
Yeah,
deal
I want to
breaker?
know.
That's it. Well, I want to know what you thought first. See
I
if you're in
know. I
agreement.
think I think if you're on a first date, like you should share. Like I think that's the fun of like enjoying that first experience. I'm all about getting a couple different little plates and sharing and trying them out and figuring out what sort of works best, and so I kind of like that. So hopefully
I
people
like that
agree.
too. Unfortunately, my husband doesn't agree with that, but most of the audience does agree
Okay.
with you. And 67% said, let it slide. I would say, like, encourage it. But my husband's
I
like,
think
if
that's
I
great.
wanted that, I would have ordered it. If you want this, you should order it yourself.
It's like when you get a specific dish that you're really craving, and then all of a sudden your partner's across from you, like, "Can I have a bite?" And you're like,
All right, I've been asking you a lot of questions, Chase, but I
"Mm,
want to remind our audience that they can submit questions. So there is a chat window which you can submit questions for Chase, for me, dating questions, diet questions, anything you want to know. Pop them in the chat right there, and then we will, a little bit later in the program, we will get to answering your questions. But first, we got
yes,
to talk about dating and diets, right? There
let's
was
do it."
a survey that Sweet Earth conducted, and it looked at all different aspects of dating
Yeah.
for various groups, from vegan to flexitarian, vegetarian, meat eaters.
Mhm.
And there were some really interesting stats in there, Chase. I'm
It
sure
kind
you
of blew
got to
my mind.
look.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's just start with one element. So,
Okay.
1 in 4 people rank having a similar diet as more important, get this, than sexual chemistry and physical appearance. Why do you think that food is such a big deal? And what can people do to bridge this gap if they have a difference in diet?
I I mean, it's hard for me to. I think first reaction is it's hard to process putting somebody's dietary restrictions above physical intimacy. So I don't know. It's just obviously it's a strange time in society where there's a lot of things that are different. But for me, I don't think I could ever look at somebody and say, oh, your diet doesn't coincide with my diet or my lifestyle. Therefore, my physical attraction to you is less than. So I don't know. That's crazy. I guess my brain doesn't process it at those levels, so it's hard for me to comprehend that. But that's the glory of being human beings, right? We all are wired differently and process things differently. So sometimes great, and sometimes in this circumstance not. So interesting.
It's funny. It's funny that you mention it like that, because when my husband and I have been together a really long time, but when we first started dating, people would always ask me, how do you do that? How can you date a vegetarian? And I was like, how is that even a question? I didn't know that was a thing. But I want to get the audience involved in the next question. We have another survey, another poll question. I'm curious to know if you've ever been ghosted after revealing you're a vegetarian or have a special diet on the first date. That poll question is going to pop up. I know some of you have already voted, but
wow, they're fast.
That's a really interesting. Ghosting is such an epidemic, Chase. I mean, we pretty much everyone has probably been ghosted who's watching this right now. But if you're a vegetarian or vegan, is it because of your special diet? So according to this poll that we gave the audience, 88% said they have never been ghosted after revealing that they're a vegetarian or have a special diet. What do you think about that?
Good for you guys. I feel like that's a staggering percentage. I thankfully have not really been out of, a relationship for a long period of time. So for me, I've been fortunate to where I haven't been ghosted. And thankfully, Maddie has not ghosted me in those ways. And I have not done it to her, I will say. Pat myself on the back for a sec. But no, I think it's crazy to think that there's even a world where that statistic is something that we're talking about. What about you? I mean, do you experience that in your world as a dating expert and as a coach and talking to people when they bring up their diets?
Yeah, it's funny what deal breakers different people bring up. It certainly is part of the conversation, and I do see sometimes people are worried about revealing what their secret vegan or vegetarian identity, because they don't want that, like, that's not about who they are. It's just a life choice that they've made, and they don't want that to be a reason for someone to not want to date them. But I do see, even as someone who is in a sort of mixed diet relationship,
right,
I do see that there are challenges that come up in dating somebody who has a different diet than you do. I'm really curious to know how you and Maddie have navigated this, and what kind of questions or challenges have come up for you two, and how you've worked through them.
Sure. I mean, prior to even dating, we were in such a tight-knit workspace for so long. So with Outer Banks, especially prior to COVID in the first season, I mean, we were working crazy hours, and for lunch we have catering, and so they have usually a vegan or vegetarian option. And so I kind of just noticed that was her choice for a lot of the season, and so it never really sparked to me. I guess I don't know if, and maybe this is a testament to my mother and how I was raised, so thank you, Mom, for this, but I never was in a position in my life to where I felt like somebody's diet or life choices was something that was a definitive factor of how I should perceive somebody. I mean, I think when you're making early judgment on people, it's not up to the minuscule details of it. It's about what, the first reaction is, and how the conversation goes, and everything besides these. I don't know, it just seems very nitpicky of anybody to look at somebody and say, oh, I don't want to date them because it's a pain in the butt to figure out what we're going to have for dinner. To me, when it comes to Maddie's diet and now adapting and adjusting in my life to adding vegan and vegetarian options, it doesn't feel like an inconvenience to me. It feels more like a challenge, to find something that fits both of our lifestyles and to work together to make, meals in the house, whether it's using the Sweet Earth products or just finding fun, dishes online. it's sort of a fun form of collaboration that continues to bring us together because it's forcing us to think outside of the box versus just saying, oh, let's just, use a food delivery service and order a pizza. So I don't know. I find it a more enjoyable factor than it being a negative connotation.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're a very understanding partner and you're very observant and you really pay attention. And I think it's important for everybody to know that whether they are vegetarian, vegan, flexitarian, or veggie curious, if you will,
Mhm.
that food doesn't have to come in the way of meeting someone amazing. And even especially right now, as we are dating in the midst of the pandemic, a lot of dating
Right.
is digital and food is part of our traditional dating culture. Food is such a big element of that. But it's
Mhm.
almost like we have a new opportunity right now to be able to lead with the connection
Right.
and not be afraid of sharing that and thinking that that might get in the way. Would you agree with
For
that?
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I mean, I mean, I would love to get your 2 cents on how dating has sort of changed over this whole pandemic and what that looks like because, for me, I'm super fortunate and blessed to have a partner who I get to spend so much time with. But as a single looking for a partner during this time, what is that even, how does that process work? I mean, obviously we have dating apps and obviously we go through, the technology that we're granted, but like we talked about with the food being such a staple piece with the early dating experience, how has that transitioned um, in this new world of dating with being stuck at home?
Well, it's totally different and also sort of the same.
Right.
But most people are dating virtually. And I was
Right.
even looking over some OkCupid stats, and it said that the majority of people, 9 out of 10 people, were still dating
Hmm.
throughout the pandemic. And fun
Right.
fact, vegetarians, flexitarians do quite well. Flexitarians got 1.5% more likes. They got 1.5, not percent. They got 1.5 more likes by revealing that they're flexitarian in their profile. So I think that's a good argument for actually being honest. I mean, there's so
Right.
much. Everybody's like trying to be likable online, and
Yeah,
I encourage people rather than trying to be likable, try more to be yourself. And
absolutely.
and when you share those kind of details about who you are and why you make these choices for your life, that to me tells a lot more about the person than if you just try to have a pretty profile that
Right.
anybody could connect to, you know?
Absolutely. No, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there with, honesty is the best policy. The more we can be truthful, not just to the external world, but with ourselves and feel comfortable in our skins, then those experiences, and whether it be a first date or finally, gaining the courage to speak, to reach out to somebody that you've wanted to kind of start that flame with. I think it's important to have that honest talk with yourself to be able to be vulnerable enough to talk about these things, whether it is diet, whether it is, previous life experiences or previous relationship experiences. And I don't know, I just think truth is just where it all needs to start. So that's interesting. And I
Yeah,
like
and
that.
it really
Like that,
truth
that's change.
yeah. Truth is really what gets us to the core of connection. And people always
Yeah.
ask me on my podcast, like, how do you know? How do you know if they're the one? What are the elements, the real elements of long-term relationship success?
Hmm.
And the two biggest factors that I see are having shared values and common goals for the future. And I feel
Hmm.
like revealing your dietary choices and why, that is revealing your values. And
Right.
even though my husband and I date, we eat differently since
Hmm.
even since we dated.
Hmm.
We When I asked him why he chose to be a vegetarian and he could tell me why that was important to him, it gave me
Hmm.
insight into the way that he looked at the world. And those are the kind of conversations that I think actually build deeper connections than just the same
Absolutely.
old, like, what do you do? Where are you from? Those
Right.
boring kinds of questions.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's beautifully put. I mean, I think it's important to, if you can't stand up for something as simple as diet, right, and a food choice, whether it's for health reasons or, like you said, just because you want that choice in your life, then where does that leave a relationship to go? You know, you're already starting out with a dishonesty by not being truthful about something that could be impactful to your health or impactful to your mental health, or just your general life. It's something that you've been practicing, and now you're looking at it saying, I'm nervous about the outcome of this X person, and how they perceive me because of my choice of food options, versus it being, I'm proud of the fact that I've made these specific changes in my life. Therefore, I want to be passionate and open with myself first and foremost, so that I can then be passionate and excited about it with, whoever this new partner is, whether it's a new fling, or it's somebody that you've been excited to be with, or it's, a partner that you've kind of been seeing, for multiple occasions now.
Yes, and it's interesting also how the survey also looked at people who are vegetarian or vegan but go on a date and
Hmm.
then feel pressured to change their diet for a particular date. And I actually
That's
asked my husband
crazy.
about that. I said, did you ever do that? Like, did before me, of course, did
Hmm.
you ever eat meat on a date because you were embarrassed or felt uncomfortable? And he said
Right.
yes. He had a date that picked Korean barbecue. And
Mm.
I don't know why he didn't just say maybe there isn't something that
Yeah,
I
maybe
can
maybe
share.
barbecue is not the best option for. I
It's
don't know.
yeah, very meat
But
based.
I get it. I
But
mean, I do see the other side of that, where I think, it's tough to be vulnerable, especially in today's day and age, right? Like, we've been dealing with such a tumultuous time, and as a male, right, making these choices, sometimes it can be difficult to be perceived in a specific way of changing your diet, because I know I've been ridiculed at times for changing my diet and having people look at me in specific ways by saying, you're choosing to have a vegan option, or you're choosing to take a vegetarian plate versus this, fancy, 8-ounce New York strip. And I've felt that, and it's not a great feeling. So I understand, and I can relate to people who, decide to not want to do that. But I think that's been my journey as well, with my discovery within my internal self, and growing as an individual, and feeling more comfortable in my skin. And I think that's just, a stigma that needs to change, that diet is just a component of who we are. It's just another asset to, what makes us who we are internally and externally, and shouldn't be
mhm,
chastised or, defined by those things. It's like, I have 10 toes, right? And I'm also interested in eating, vegan based, options. And that's really all it is. So yeah,
mhm.
it's sad that people have to, be insecure about their choice to change their lifestyle for their betterment, versus being open and proud of those things because it is a change for the betterment of themselves.
Right, right. Well, so just going back to that survey, the Sweet Earth Dating and Diet survey said that 1 in 5 vegans and vegetarians did break with their diets um, because they were too anxious to tell their date about their diet. So I'm with you. I hope that in maybe this next phase we can bring more of ourselves to the date. And
Hmm.
you asked me what changed in
Hmm.
in dating since the pandemic began. I would say that the pace of dating has changed. Before it was so fast, just like swipe, 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 and on to the date. There was a lot of ghosting. There was a lot of dissatisfaction. And now I'm seeing that people are taking a lot more time because you have to vet somebody for COVID
Right.
safety. And, I
Sure.
know everyone watching has very different feelings about what is safe in COVID. And I have my clients literally write out a COVID dating safety plan. But the
Right.
upside of that is it makes them have to ask these questions about what are deal breakers for me, both in terms of
Right.
COVID safety and in terms of other things. And then you can get to know someone virtually, over over Zoom dates or FaceTime, whatever, you pick your platform. But
Right.
that courtship process, if I can use that
Right.
word, it's kind of old fashioned, but it's slowing everything down so that once you do decide to meet someone offline, you have more of a sense of who they are. And
Sure.
that I think lead to deeper connections. But the other side of it is certainly mental health has been it's always been something that I've talked about in dating coaching, but
Right.
I think that's an even bigger concern right now. And
Yeah.
I really encourage my clients to be mindful with their lifestyle choices, whether it's adopting a meditation or mindfulness practice or
Yeah.
doing exercise. And it's interesting. I hadn't really thought about it before this date, but before this event, but I really want to encourage my clients to think as they're dating about also their food choices, because what you put into your body can really impact
Absolutely.
the way that you
Yeah.
feel, right?
Sure. I mean,
Have
I
you
think, no, go ahead.
have you noticed a big change just in either your own body or clarity or mental health since you shifted your diet?
For sure. I mean, I think for me, I started to notice a change early on when I started to adapt a plant-based diet in my mental health, and that's really what sparked this partnership with Sweet Earth for me. Was I was looking for the best options available, and I was looking for ways to sort of incorporate that into my diet as I started to see the effects of it. So I have been super open about my experiences with my own mental health and talking about how I've struggled with anxiety and forms of depression as well. And I noticed that the more I take care of myself and my diet, that becomes less of a defining factor. And I'm not saying that diet is the be all ends all, and that's going to solve mental health issues across the planet. But I do notice that the better I feel my body, the more active I am, the more time I take for just being still and practicing, like you said, whether it's breathing exercises, whether it's taking time to meditate, whether it's putting my phone away at the beginning of the day for 20, 30 minutes to just completely disconnect. And then, sort of adding in a higher quality diet. And I think, just to touch on the diet portion of it, I think this pandemic has thrown us all for a loop in the diet space because we're so invested into trying to be financially, sort of in this bubble, right? Because everything has been shifted, everything has been adjusted. And so how do we adapt to this new day and age where, we're not getting consistent paychecks. We're not reliant on, the same forms of income that we have been for our entire lives. So how does that change the way that we eat? But I would say to those who are still, dealing with this in the ways that we are, don't think that a plant-based diet or some of the Sweet Earth products are more expensive than, a meat alternative. And I suggest trying it because my experience with it, even with work, right? I have an incredibly strenuous schedule where I have a very physical job. As most people probably know, I run a lot in this show and I do stupid things all the time. So in order to keep up with that,
And your shirt is
right,
off a lot of the show too.
yes, yeah, that's a
That
whole
too.
nother side of it. But no, like, when you're shooting that long and you have these lunch breaks, it's just like in any job, coming back from lunch, you're just kind of dragging a little bit. And I've noticed that incorporating a plant-based diet has really depleted that. And I haven't felt those post-lunch slumps or the want to go grab a coffee right after I, finish my lunch break. So I've just been thankful for Sweet Earth because it's such an easy product, right? Like I can just throw it in my backpack, I can bring it to work, I can throw it in my fridge in my trailer, pop it in my microwave when I go to lunch and be done with it. It's super easy, it's super efficient. So it's just, I highly suggest that people take that into consideration when they're kind of having these questions of how to dive into this space.
Mm-hmm. And I brought up kind of flippantly that your shirt is off a lot of the show, but I
It,
brought it up.
is. Yeah, no, it is.
It certainly is.
A couple.
But I brought it up more for our audience because I see a lot of people struggling with self-esteem and wanting to,
Sure.
look a certain way and feeling like that is something that impacts their success in love.
Right.
And I believe that you can be you can be beautiful in any package, and
Mhm.
it's more about the way that you feel. But I'm curious if you've noticed from changing your diet, both the kind of physical
Yeah.
and mental health and
Yeah.
self-esteem.
I mean,
I
yeah,
wouldn't
no.
I'd be worried about going on a show with my shirt off every
Yeah,
week.
no, I mean,
I'm
I
sure it brings
think
up a lot.
anytime that you realize that there's that many people that are watching the show, your anxiety immediately goes skyrocketing. And just last night, right, being fully transparent, I had a full-blown anxiety attack about that and about what has been going on with season two and how I view myself. And Maddie, thankfully, is just the perfect person for this and talked me off a ledge. But I was really not in a great place because I was so concerned with my image and how people are going to perceive me. And I put so much into my work, with building this character, that I think sometimes you sort of put some things in a secondary position. And with COVID, it's been tough. It's been tough to, be as active as you once were and finding ways to sort of adjust to that. So for me, it was kind of one of those moments where I was like, am I okay? Is this, have I done my part in the physical side of things as much as I have with, the acting side of it, with the actual craft? And that's been a major component of, this character. And it's not like it's, a couple friends from back home in Florida who are watching the show. It's, a lot of the world. And sometimes that becomes incredibly overwhelming. And I just have to learn to, regardless of it, whether it's diet, whether it's my own perception of it, whether it's the world's perception of it, right? It all comes down to that self-love and knowing that I'm doing my best and giving myself the proper fuel to feed my body so that I physically and mentally and emotionally feel aligned with myself and don't lose grip of those things. And I think we've all kind of gone through that through this entire pandemic experience of questioning ourselves, questioning our values, questioning our self-worth. And I think it's important to have these moments though, because today, after I sat and talked with Maddie, we were up super late and, she sort of was so great about keeping me sort of aligned. And today was insanely productive for me. So for those out there who are struggling with those things and interested in trying a plant-based diet or interested in just making changes in their physical, mental, or emotional life, it's one day is one thing and then the next day can be, a completely different chapter. So fortunately, I have a great partner who can help me out with those things and we sort of bounce those off each other. But I think that kind of
Yeah.
answers the question.
It does.
Yeah.
And I just also want to acknowledge that thank you for being so transparent about that. I think a lot of times people aren't aware of what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So it's really important for us to all be having this conversation about mental
Hmm.
health and self-esteem and being honest that a lot of
Right.
people are grappling with those kind of
Right.
questions, and even they might look perfect from the outside, but
Right.
inside we're all on our own journey. And it's so
Absolutely.
wonderful to hear that you found a partner that's totally supportive
Mhm.
of 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 you and of this journey. So we are going to open up the Q&A portion of the
Let's
show
do it. Yeah,
of
let's
the
do it.
event. Okay, so just to kick it off, before we start taking questions, I want to do one more poll. What is your favorite food-focused date night activity, virtually or in person? Valentine's Day is coming up, so let us know what you're thinking about, either for Valentine's Day or for another date. And the options that you'll see on your screen are A, cook dinner together, B,
Mm,
takeout, C,
mm,
park picnic, or D, hike and grub on the go. What is your favorite food-focused date night activity? So
mm.
as the responses are coming in, Chase, do you have one of those that spoke to you? Cook dinner together, take out, park picnic, hike and grub on the go?
I'm kind of a homebody, especially as life has sort of changed and, going to restaurants is not as easy as it once was. Um, so I really appreciate a home cooked meal. I mean, that's something I think growing up in the South too, like I'm so spoiled by having so many people who just shove incredible food in my mouth all the time. So yeah, I love a good home cooked meal. I think there's something
I
like really
Yes.
special about it too, like the intimacy of two people starting with, just ingredients and then creating a dish and then sitting down when you're done with it and saying, we did this. It's like a food baby.
Yeah, I've recommended it for a while to my Dates and Mates podcast listeners as a great, even an early date, because it can really help you also with communication. If you have to say like, honey, it's too much. You burned, you burned that part of the
Turn
dish.
the stove down.
Right. You have to be able to communicate to cook together. So I think that's wonderful that that's an activity that you and Maddie have done. All right. The results are in, and most people agree with you. 47% said cook dinner together is one of their favorite date night activities. Followed with the park picnic. That's the one I was going to say. But I live in LA where we have beautiful weather all year round. So
when I'm in LA, that's a go-to for sure. Park and pick.
All right, our questions are coming in on the chat. So I have the first question for you is, what does it mean to be a flexitarian, and what is it like dating a vegan? Is it hard to cook two different meals?
Being a flexitarian, to answer part one, is not necessarily defining myself to a specific diet. So because I'm in a relationship with somebody who practices a vegan diet, I wanted to adjust my life and be a quality partner to her. So I have adapted and started to sort of make more of a conscious effort to trying vegan dishes as well as vegetarian dishes. And I am from the East Coast. I was born in Annapolis, Maryland, which is basically the crab capital of the world. And, so I'm a diehard seafood lover. But I still, try my best to just sort of be all over the place when it comes to diet and not really define myself. But I do make a very large conscious effort to have quite a bit of my diet on a vegan/vegetarian base.
I want to know details. I want to get in here and find out specifics. What do you and Maddie, like specifically, what do you love cooking together?
I think something that we've been cooking a lot of lately, just because it's so hard to go out and about, right? Like we're in this weird world to where, there's only so many options available, right? So we do a lot of home cooked meals. I mean, that's something that's been great about this Sweet Earth partnership is that, I have a lot of their product at my house, and it's just been great because, you can do something very easy like that. And actually, do you want to talk about what we do at home?
Yes. Hi.
Hello.
We got Maddie.
I have a microphone. I feel important.
Yay. Yes. I love this he said, she said dynamic. It's like, that's what he said. Would Maddie agree?
I know. I was trying to play, what do we do? But I was like, you know what? Why don't you just
when
talk
we're
about
cooking?
Yeah. I'm just a sous chef, to be honest.
He helps.
With this way?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Like, once again, honking. So when it comes to cooking, I feel like what we do is he's really good about it. Like you said, he's really good at adjusting, especially while we're shooting and I'm trying to be a little bit more strict just for like energy and, just health reasons. Like I like to stay on a strict diet just because I feel better and I feel more productive. But he's really good about being flexible and, if he's like, I don't want to do vegan tonight, usually we'll find a good option where we can like make something and then have like a vegan option for protein and like a chicken or something other.
Yeah, like you do the curry dish, which she'll, make this like a yellow curry. And then she'll have a bunch of vegetables in it so that she can have like a vegan curry option. And then I'll cook fish on the side so that I can kind of toss it in there. So it's mutually beneficial for kind of both of us in that circumstance.
Yeah. So it kind of,
that's a genius solution.
Yeah.
I can't take responsibility for that. Like as much as I would love to, that was this one. Being like, well, if you want, fish, you can have fish. Why don't you just cook some fish and, bloop.
It's a good way to compromise because like I don't want to dictate anybody else's diet and I don't Like, I mean, I was eavesdropping and I heard you talking about the whole like going to restaurants and feeling pressured to order something that's not vegan because you don't want to get making fun of, or you don't want to be made fun of, or you don't want to I don't know, be like that vegan person. And it's just like, I don't know, you don't just don't want to go through that. And so that's a very real thing. And it's also one of those things, like I've had roommates before, and like I've gone through, we quarantined together for a little bit. And so, it's always one of those things where, you're trying to cater to a lot of people and, make people happy. And it's really easy to do something where you can make the protein separate,
Yeah.
and everybody
Yes.
can basically have what they want.
Yeah, so I'm married and I also have 2 kids. So we basically have 4 different diets going. And one of our favorites is taco night, because then everybody can
Yes.
choose their own toppings, right? And then,
Yep.
I can have my more plant-based stuff, and my kid, I have one kid who's a total meat eater and one who is not. So everybody can kind of have their own thing and everybody is happy. If you were just on your own making a meal just for yourself, Maddie, what would be your favorite thing to cook?
So I really love to make this brown rice bowl, and I found it, I don't know where I found it. I went through this phase of like going through cooking blogs. Like when I first started going vegan, I was like, I don't know what is good to make. Like I feel like vegan food gets a bad rap for being not as good.
Kind of bland.
Right. And so I was like, I'm going to go to a blog, because I feel like you can't have a successful blog if you're cooking bad food. And so I found this really great brown rice bowl from Trader Joe's. It's like 4 ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
And it's brown rice, butternut squash, broccolini.
My favorite. I love that.
5 ingredients. It has sausage in it, and then it also
Just for me
has
sometimes.
sriracha. And so I'll make the sausage separate for him. It's like Italian sausage. And then what I'll do, which is really great, after Sweet Earth came around, I will cook up the Mindful chicken or any of their proteins, and I'll just throw it in my bowl separately. And it's absolutely delicious. It's the butternut squash is like, once it's cooked, it's kind of caramelized, and the broccolini makes me feel healthy. And so Trader's has this brown rice that when you cook it, it's kind of sticky, and it's really, really yummy with all the other ingredients put together. And I love to put sriracha on it, and the Mindful chicken's kind of a game changer in that. So that's what I like to do.
Yeah, we like to.
That sounds
switch up.
delicious. When can I come over, y'all? When's my invitation? No.
Anytime.
You want to
Come
make
over.
a trip down to Charleston? We got room to play.
Come over. I got wine. Wine's vegan, right?
Right. More questions for you both. Okay, this is a little bit of a curveball, but since Valentine's Day is coming up, we want to get a little bit romantic. Someone has asked the both of you, what is your love language? Do you know about the 5 love languages? Do you know what your love language is?
He's a big love language person.
Do you know yours?
I think you gave me a book to read
No,
on.
I didn't.
Didn't you?
No, I
You
didn't.
sent me an article or something about like love
Did I?
languages. Yeah, you did.
Sometimes I forget what I do. But it's funny because I know his love languages because I'm aware of the love languages. And I know mine, but I don't think. Do you know?
Well, spill the beans.
Your
Tell
love
us,
language?
what is it?
Okay, so my
I
love
don't.
languages are quality time.
Mhm.
I think, and words of affirmation.
We talked about this really recently.
Did we?
Yeah, within like the last 2 weeks, I feel like.
And I feel like yours is like acts of service.
What does that mean?
It means like, so he's really, really good at making sure that I'm taken care of. Like, even if it's not like, I wouldn't say yours would be like gifts, unless I specifically pick something out and tell you I want it. But like,
It's fascinating, right?
but it's sweet because it's one of those things where he's really good at making sure that I'm taken care of. Like, every morning he will leave a cup out for me for my coffee, and he will leave my oat milk out, and he will I don't know, do things like make sure, like, occasionally fill up my car and make sure there's gas in it, or just like little things that say I love you without like going like without saying I love you, basically. And it's very sweet and it's very much appreciated, and it's something small, but it goes a long way. I'm not sure about what
Hmm.
your other love
I
languages
think
would be.
I think you said like words of affirmation. I think that's something that you do really well too with me.
Oh shucks.
It's like I was just explaining to Damona about like last night and how I was kind of having, a little bit of a crisis moment and how you had completely talked me off a ledge. So
He was sad boy last night. Midnight's happy boy.
But he
yeah,
has
no, I think
you, so now he's
yeah,
happy.
no, I think if we're talking about love languages, I think that's something that I really appreciate is that you have the ability to like really be able to communicate well with me in a space that doesn't necessarily lead to, you have like this calming sensation of being able to sort of put things on me in a way that in the moment I'm not able to for myself see, but as soon as you tell it to me, it's like, oh my gosh, why wasn't I able to recognize that for myself? And so I think that's like another, I don't know if that's one of the love languages because I'm not
Words of
aware of it.
affirmation is.
Okay, well, words of affirmation, yeah. Like she has a really good way of making me feel
Affirmed.
affirmed.
Heard.
Heard.
Yes,
Seen.
yeah, no.
Yeah, completely. Completely. Actually, that sort of dovetails into the next question that came in. That's for moi. Somebody wanted to know, what is the one thing that you think someone should look for in a partner? And this is a really interesting question because it's not one thing, of course, but I
No.
actually think that it's really about getting into the feeling of what it is like to be someone. So many people date by list and they're like, must be 6 feet tall, must make this much money,
Right.
must live within 10 miles of my house, all of these things on the list that
Mhm.
ultimately don't necessarily tell you who the person is and if you can love them and grow with them. But
Right.
if you really focus on the feeling that you have, like I'm curious to know from you, Chase and Maddie, like that feeling of being together. I know you started as work colleagues first, but it was just very clear to me from the beginning with my husband that he was so thoughtful and he was so intelligent. And whenever I was with him, I just wanted to lean in more and know more and more about him. And I was very curious. I have my clients and my podcast listeners lead with curiosity on a date.
Yeah.
Can you think back to a moment where you like really you knew that things had turned in your relationship or where you became more curious about one another?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
I mean, I think, we kind of had this experience through the work process where we were Maddie and I talked over and over again about like how nervous we were about screwing up this opportunity. And so there was like this whole experience while we were working to where we were getting to know each other and create this balance of, this great friendship that was developing and this John B. and Sarah Cameron thing. And I think as time progressed, we just leaned into it so hard out of the fear of failure. And then as the show ended, life kind of went back to normal. And then we had time after the show wrapped where we had spent time together and we had gone on a ski trip and done a couple other things. And I just remember so distinctly, and it wasn't just one time in particular with Maddie. It was like when you went back into the memory bank, there was just so many things that you would look at and you'd be like, God, wow, okay, I really appreciate that about her. Whether it's her ability to be open and transparent, whether it's her, emotional vulnerability, it's her way of, giving herself to others and being present for other people who, whether it's somebody on the side of the road, like she'll give that person her time. And there's something about, for me, the intellectual stimulation is just as important, if not more important than the physical stimulation. And she was just one of those people who constantly had this way, not just with myself, but with others, of sharing herself and being so present with other people. And I've seen so many times throughout life where people just don't do that. And I was like, wow, that is such a beautiful thing to do to others. And I was like, I kind of think I'm attracted to her.
That's
And I kind of
nice.
think I want to explore this. And so, as we got deeper into, doing press and all of these things, we sort of started to explore this idea of a relationship. And I remember we got caught in an interview, and she was like, "So are you guys off the market?" And Maddie and I were like,
We kind of looked at each other and like, it was like this weird thing, like looking at each other like, I'm off the market, but I don't know if you think you're off the market.
it was like we both.
It's hard
what
to
we
have that
wanted.
DTR conversation, when you're like live on air. And I mean, so many of the things that we've talked about tonight.
Well, it was like somebody
are
took a slingshot and they were like, wow,
Yeah.
with this idea. And I don't think that it had really hit us yet. Like we were like, and that was like our genuine reaction of like,
it spawned the what are we conversation a little bit
Right.
early.
Yeah.
It really just kind of
I'm
slapped.
hoping that we can create some of those DTR conversations for some of the people who are watching in the next part of this event. Honestly, I could talk to you two all night. I'm sure we could trade a lot of Sweet Earth recipes and stories back and forth about blending diets in dating and relationships. But thank you to all the people who submitted questions. I'm sorry we weren't able to get to all of them, but I really hope everybody enjoyed the discussion. I sure enjoyed talking to both of you this evening.
Yes.
Yeah, this was super fun.
It was so nice
and
to
thanks
meet
for
you.
Stephanie. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Thank you. And for all of you who are watching, there is a little speed dating thing happening for some of you coming up at 7:15 Eastern, 4:15 Pacific. So for those of you who will be joining, I'll see you at the top of that. And for everyone else, thank you so much for being here and for joining us. And thank you, Chase and Maddie.
Yeah, no, thank you for having us. Obviously, thank you, Sweet Earth, for setting up this event. It's been a pleasure. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in and submitting questions and, watching this fun, engaging conversation.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Stay healthy and enjoy Valentine's Day.